Hello there, I'm Andrew Joseph Keith. I'm an artist and a sculptor, and in this lesson I'm going to be talking about different machines that we can use to help us transfer a measurement in space, like one that you might use for transferring a sculpture design into stone. Sound cool? Let's get into it. All right, this is going to be one of the free lessons for the stone sculpting course. If you'd like more information, be sure to get that course. I'm an artist. I'm also cheap, so I like building things. And this is fun because it's kind of got a mechanical element to it, a design element to it. Maquineta de punto. Point machine. There are machines that you can purchase that are just for this. In fact, I looked up on sculpt.com, I looked up one and it's $500. I didn't even know they were that expensive. $500 for a new point machine, so a little pricey for one of these sculpting machines. Let's see, there's this little video that shows how to work with the point machine. Okay, so I knew that they were probably expensive. I didn't know that they were that expensive. $500 for a point machine, that is a lot. So let's go over a couple of these. So this point machine, I'll just basically explain how it works and why it might be helpful for stone sculpture. And I'm going to use a tripod, build something that can function as a point machine out of recycled tripods. I got this for $1. I got this one for 50 cents. I really like these older tripods. They have a cool look about them. Another one down here. I just grab them when I see them because they're often just like $1 or $2 at our local thrift store. A lot of places they're going to be more expensive than that. But you can usually find these for not too much if you know where to look. Definitely less than 500. So in order to capture a point in space, you need a solid frame that which you usually build. And this has to be 3 points. And so usually, let's say that we're gonna be sculpting this eye sculpture that I did for the portrait course. And so we would want to secure this in place. Let's say that this is gonna be the base for it. And then we would choose 3 points. 1, 2, and then maybe possibly 1 point could even be on the sculpture itself. Let's say we're taking this and then transferring it into a piece of stone that's the same size, and we're just doing 1-to-1 scale. So we're not upscaling it or downscaling it, just 1-to-1. 3 points, and you have to have 3. You have to have 3, right? Because we're in space, and so if you only had 2 points, then the whole machine can move or pivot back and forth on those 2 points, and so that third point gives you a flat plane somewhere solid that you can then measure out from and get back to every time and have it be really consistent. In a lot of ways, this measuring is like what a 3D printer will do or like what a CNC machine will do. It just takes measurements of points in space, and the more points of measurement, the more information that you have, the more detailed you can get with that. And so we're kind of using that mechanism, but we're doing it in a physical way and a way that often involves building your own machines to do it, which I think is kind of more traditional in that classical approach to artists trying to figure things out. Let's talk about the machine that you would use and that you would attach to those points. Now, a tripod has those 3 points, and the head of a tripod works really well because you can pan, you can tilt back and forth, pan up and down, and the only other thing that you need is to be able to move the point forward and back. And so that's what we have to figure out with this, is a way for you to move a point forward and back. Because once you have that, once you have the ability to move this forward, back, then you pretty much have a point machine for sculpture. Now, the ones that are designed specifically for sculpture are a lot smaller, they're more convenient, and they usually have an extra arm so that you can reach out. Now, we can maybe combine 2 tripods to make another arm. I don't know yet. I'm kind of trying to figure this out as I'm going. But this one, it's kind of cool because you can take it off and then put the head underneath, slide it up from underneath, and then tighten it. And then let's say I was doing this right here and I moved to a point where I wanted to take a measurement. Then I would just slide this in place, create a mechanism to lock it in place there, and then move the whole tripod over without changing the position of any of the legs, without changing the position of this arm. and then I can transfer it over to a block of stone if I had a block of stone right here. So this I can move up and down. I can move this up and down, side to side. And then what's also nice about the tripod is that you can tighten it, tighten everything in place so that the head won't move. And you would also have to have a way to tighten the pointer into place so that it wouldn't move. And then you can really transfer that measurement. Let's see if I can't get some way to attach a pointer to one of these so that I can move it back and forth. And then we'll have a working point machine. I'm gonna flip this one. I think I wanna use this one because it has the ability to flip, and I just think that's cool. We're gonna try to use this, and I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to make something that will allow a rod to go back and forth. To do this, I think I'm gonna have to cannibalize this old project because it has some hardware that I think might be useful. So I still might use this again, but for now I'm gonna say goodbye. Time to say goodbye. Okay, so now this technically should be able to move back and forth. Okay, so I've got that can move back and forth by just twisting it. Then I have this nut that fits here. So I think I'm just gonna try to epoxy these together. Let me go get some epoxy. And then we should have something that we can move back and forth just by twisting. Takes a little bit of time. It's not ideal. It would be nicer if there was something that could slide quickly and then tighten, but this will work for a prototype. It'll be fine. That was maybe too much epoxy. I want to let the epoxy start setting up a little bit. Probably a piece you could buy that's exactly this, just like a T-joint, but we make do with what we have. Just trying to move it around so that the epoxy doesn't run down and get away from where I want it to actually be gluing it together. I'm gonna see if I can't take this one, make a more exact point that I can attach onto the other one. Come back the next day just to let it set up completely. Really simple. Ground down the end so it's more of a pencil point to get a little bit more accurate. I'll just twist that on here, twist this on the other end. So it does take a little bit of time to adjust just because the adjustment comes from twisting it. What do you expect? And then we're gonna twist this on just to lengthen this a little bit. Now we have something that we can twist to lengthen or shorten. We can hook that on to our tripod. Okay, here we go. Now let me show you how this could work. Okay, so this is really cool. It's a working point machine for sculpture that you can use for sculpture, and the machine then has to be set on a frame, and the frame is really important. So let me show you how a simple method that I think I could use to complete this and make it something that's a functioning tool that you could use for sculpture. So to make the frame, you'd have to have two identical boards, and then what you would do is you would set the sculpting machine on the board, you would mark out each of the holes, and you would drill through both of the boards to get matching identical, it has to be identical holes in 3 points on the board and on the board underneath. Have a sculpting table, you would attach these down with the 3 marks so that you can move this exactly from one stand to the other and the legs be exactly in the same spot. And that's crucial that the legs be in the same spot every time. It might even help to add a piece of metal or wood and then sharpen it down to a point, just as I've done with this, and then make those holes very small so that when you set them in, it just fits perfectly every time, because the more consistent this is every time you set it, the better. And then those holes have to be exactly the same. I'd probably do it this way in relationship to the reference that you're using. Let's say I have the reference here. I really wouldn't use this for something that small. It's not going to be that precise and accurate. At least I don't think it would be. I would use this for larger sculptures, but just as a demo. And then this, the cool thing about this tripod, you could use it just like this and just get a longer arm for areas where you need to measure. But this particular tripod is cool because you can take this off, you can put it underneath, And everything, before you move it from one to another, you have to make sure everything's tightened in place. The legs are inside of those holes that you would drill that would match on each one. Then you would move it over. You would take a measurement. Oh, also it would be really important to secure down your sculpture to the base. So for this, you might use wax, or you might even glue it down. If it's the reference, you might glue it down or nail it down or something. It has to be secure. It can't move at all whatsoever during the whole sculpting process, or else this doesn't work. It loses its effectiveness. And the same thing with the piece of stone. What they usually do would melt beeswax on the bottom and then put that in place, and then later on you can grind it down, or some type of sticky wax, or you could even use epoxy and epoxy it down to the board just so that it doesn't move during the whole sculpting process, and then you can grind that down. But for this machine to work, it's essential that the board that has the 3 points of reference that you're moving from one stand to the other does not move at all whatsoever. I'm trying to emphasize that because that's the whole point of this. And then you would move this. You could move this up and down, move this forward and back until you get a point in space. Move this over and you get a point, let's say the top right there. Lock everything in place, and then you would move that over here and make that same mark. Now, I would prefer, if I was going to make some more modifications to this, I would prefer a sliding lock mechanism for this, just because twisting it is not very effective. And if you have a sliding lock mechanism, you can just measure the length of this arm, slide it out of place, and then drilling the piece of stone, you can drill in a little bit and then repeat that measurement, see if you've gone far enough, drill a little bit more, going back and forth, taking different measurements of different places on the sculpture. So this is something that I would still need to experiment with. Most of the demos that I've done for the sculpting course are using the sight method, where you're looking just through your reference at the sculpture, closing one eye, aligning the outline from one angle, turning it, doing the same thing from another angle. That sight method has worked really well for me and kind of helped me develop a sculptor's eye, where I can kind of see if things are accurate or not. Trusting a machine would be very difficult for me at this point, but it's something that I am interested in, and so I'd like to try to finish the build for this and try to transfer some measurements. I just think that this is cool to be able to build a $500 tool, or something that would cost $500, with a simple tripod, and then by building some sculpture stands with scrap pieces of wood. That's just a cool way to go about sculpting. And then you would actually physically mark out those spots that you're referencing on your maquette. You would take a little marker and say, okay, this is the farthest point out on the lower eyelid. You would make a mark for that. You would make a mark for the inside of the iris, that area for the forehead. You would mark those as you measure them, and then you would drill in until it matches the measurement, and then you would sculpt to get to that measurement. So there's a whole process once you have the machine, and once it's working. This should work. It should be able to transfer measurements as long as everything stays consistent, and as long as the 3 holes that you drill are exactly the same on the template that holds your reference that doesn't move, and holds your sculpture that doesn't move, and those 3 holes are the exact same on each side. So I love this kind of stuff. This is the stuff that I think is so fun, being able to build a machine that would cost $500, to be able to build it out of, $5 worth of materials, cheap, used, vintage tripod, some threaded rod, and some of these connectors, and a bolt is all I used, and then some 5-minute epoxy. I mean, it's really super simple. I don't know how I could get more simple. This one you would only be able to do at the front, right? And so if you wanted to get the back of the sculpture, you could lengthen this and do another 3 posts on the back, another 3 posts on the back of the other reference. You would just have to make sure that those were perfect as well. The distances between those front 3 holes and the back 3 holes would have to match perfectly. Take the 2, put them on top of each other, and then drill through to get an exact template, and then you could switch this to the back of the sculpture and do the same thing, transferring the measurements. I think that's how I would do it. That's another simple way that I would do it. Another thing that I was thinking about, though I think that would be a lot more complicated, is you could, if you had another thin tripod, you could detach another arm so that you could basically swing this tripod around and have a little bit more movement. You could move this, tripod here and then turn this and then extend it forward and back. That's something that I was thinking would be cool, and it would allow you to have more of that arm that's more an accurate imitation of the more expensive tools. But that's something that I would figure out, and it would be a more complicated setup than this right here. This right here would work, and it's super simple, super cheap. I think that's cool. So this is one way, one method, one possible method to make a point machine. About the reference, it's better if the reference is in plaster, something that's not easy to destroy, because as you're taking many points, you're gonna hit the surface many times, and depending on the machine that you're using, it can really mark up the surface, or it can just go too far into the surface, and then the measurement that you're transferring won't be exact. I'm gonna talk about a couple others just because I think they're cool, and they're machines that have been used by other sculptors. There are ways to do it where you can scale up your sculpture to take a smaller reference and then put it into a larger piece of stone. And that's what this one is for. If you're interested in the sculpting course, then I encourage you to check out the links below. Sculpting Fundamentals course, which is a great foundational course for sculpting in 3 dimensions. And that's what I recommend you do. First, be able to build a maquette with a design that you like before you move into stone. But then once you're ready to move on to stone sculpting, I hope you'll check out the stone sculpting course. I found it much easier to sell and market stone sculptures than sculptures that are cast in plaster or resin. There's just a greater value, perceived value when it comes to stone. And so this machine is something that can help you with that, and the stone sculpting course can definitely help you. So I hope to see you in the course. You can also join the Discord, which is free, and there's an invitation link down in the description below for that as well. You can join over on Patreon to get some exclusive content. Hopefully this project helps you to stay creative and stay productive, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like this video, you might also like my sculpting playlists. There's a playlist for each of the courses with all of the free lessons for those courses. The Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course, the Portrait Sculpting course, the Hand Sculpting course, and the Stone Sculpting course. I put all of those free lessons on the playlists here on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested in binge watching some sculpting content, I encourage you to check out those playlists. Got water dripping in the background.